Sarah, I'm not going to stand on the bloody cakes, okay? It's not what we're going to do. It's just, shh. Well, I can do. No. Well, so, hello. First of all, this is the fun room. Look around you, okay? So we expect interaction, we expect laughter, happiness, joy, if you will. So I would like to welcome everybody to the stage. Tom is going to introduce everyone, but it turns out that Teams is 5 years old. 5 years old. I remember when it was linked, 2013. So I am going to introduce you to Tom Morgan. Tom is going to be running the show here.
Thank you very much.
It's a lot of... It is, isn't it? Do you know what I mean? Not everyone can make it look like I do. So, Laurie, this is for you. Can I get a massive round of applause for everybody on this stage?
Thanks, Will. I have no intention of making it look like you. Welcome, everyone, to this special panel session. We have more cakes and drinks than we know what to do with. So whilst we're talking, feel free, come and get some cake, come and get a drink, make yourselves at home. If you've got a question, if you want to go direct to the panel, stick your hand up, shout if we don't hear you. We've got the throwy box thing. We have got a super special panel of Teams experts today to celebrate 5 years of Teams, which, I mean, time has flown, right? You can't, thinking about it now, it's really hard to imagine a world without things like Teams and channels, you know, without Blurple, without tenant switching, but also without innovation and things. If you just think about the whole meeting space and how that's completely innovated. So to mark this kind of special occasion, we've got some of the finest Teams professionals to discuss a range of subjects, but we also only have 45 minutes. So I'm going to introduce them really, really quickly. Then we're going to kind of talk through them, and they're all going to talk to each other. And I'm not going to get my stopwatch out as well, because otherwise we're going to run out of time. So we have Sara Fennah, we have Luise, we have Yannick Reekmans, and we have Laurie Pottmeyer. Big introduction clap for our panel, please. And we're gonna go through a few things. We're gonna get the whole backstory of Teams from Laurie. We're gonna look at changes in how people use Teams with Sara. We're gonna put on some scuba gear and go deep diving into the pro development world with Yannick. But first of all, we're gonna start with Luise. Didn't know this was coming, sorry. So today, right now, you're a consultant, you're a maker for Microsoft Teams on the Power Platform, and you help system developers build on Teams. But that's not always been the case for you, right? So the last 5 years has seen, you know, a big kind of change in your career. Can you take us on that journey?
Yeah, so hey, hi everyone. Grab a cake, yet again.
And drinks.
And drinks. So
alcoholic there, non-alcoholic on that side. So
that does not mean that if you drink alcohol that you need to move. It's just like, where are the cops, you know? Yeah, so actually, I role shifted from a role from business comms into tech 4 years ago. So I don't even use Teams for 5 years straight. So I was late to the party, but so that's how I'm going to celebrate this today. But I started in user adoption and just like talking with people and explaining everything and over and over and over again. And at some point I was tired of explaining stuff and I wanted to build stuff. And as I couldn't write a single line of code, I was just like sticking to this Microsoft slogan of, yeah, everyone can build an app without a single line of code. And of course, we know that this was a big lie, but at that point, I believed them. And then I at least learned to write some code, so I wouldn't claim myself to just like being excelling at that, but yeah, making my way through that. And I today totally enjoy to build apps and to help people building even more apps and supervising them and making awesome stuff work that is not in the product yet, or that just like needs to fill some gaps, or just like integrate with systems that they already have.
Do you think organizations today see the power of that platform, or do they need like bringing on board a little bit?
It depends.
Drink.
which means I need to have a drink now because I said so. So it depends if I explain this to them. So usually they are just like I want to have this app working, and they don't see Power Platform as a platform that you need to invest in, and then you can just like build amazing things and have this maker mentality and mindset throughout your entire organization to really leverage what's in that. And it takes a while to explain this, and of course this goes just like with budget and licensing, and it's just like all the crappy details that no one likes to talk about, but I make them understand. So I can be quite convincing, just like very much so, because I do not stop to just like lay my finger in the wound again and again and again, but so they do once I explain this to them.
And kind of tied to that, like the thing that I see as well is like the pace of change, like the way things are changing so quickly, you know? And do you think, like I'm trying really hard not to ask like super easy questions, like I'm trying to like mix it up a little bit to keep it interesting, so apologies. Do you think sometimes that pace of change is too fast for companies, or like can companies keep up? And actually, sorry, I've just thought about this, can Microsoft keep up? And what I'm thinking about is things like licensing, like where it feels like the licensing is evolving, right? And like that's the thing we talk about when we talk Power Platform, and that it shouldn't be like that. We should lead with the tech. And like, how do you think about that?
Yeah, so we can all agree that Microsoft is an amazing company and they deliver very great apps and services, but they super suck at explaining licensing and in just like doing a proper licensing model for just like nearly all of their services.
Except for Teams.
Except for Teams, of course, except for Teams. So again, so this is just like my focus is Power Platform, and I'm like to integrate with Teams then. But in terms of keeping up the pace, so I think this comes and goes in waves somehow, and sometimes it's the customers chasing Microsoft, and sometimes it's Microsoft chasing the customers, and I think it's always a challenge, but if you don't evolve, you will only repeat, and I can't repeat. So I find repetition super boring. So I can't do this, and organizations can't do this as well, because if it's boring, it won't still fulfill a need that is in the market, and therefore we need to evolve, because otherwise we die. And so they just need to. They have no other choice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And if there's one thing people could do today to make more of Power Platforms and Microsoft Teams working together, people out, you know, in organizations today, if there's one thing they can do, what would you say they should do? What's the thing to do first, today, now?
Understanding what Teams is made for. So Teams is not just like a fancy blurb app to host your meetings in. It is delivering the right content in the context for the right people that need it. And once you figured out what context and content mean and what is the relationship between of them, then you know what Teams is made for. And then you can discover all the great features that are already built into the product. And of course, the extensibility model that makes sure that if something is not working yet, you can just like build it on your own.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I'm going to give you a break for a second because I want to bring in Sarah. I'm keeping an eye on the time. Do feel free to chip in though, like when everyone else is talking. Sarah, I want to bring you in because you're a trainer, right? And you've been a trainer, you've been training users for 20 years or something.
Mm-hmm.
So you must be used to kind of changes in technology and changes in how that is received by users and how it's, you know, how users deal with it. And so I can only imagine what it must have been like 5 years ago when this new product dropped. What was that like for users, like showing up with a, you can use this now?
Actually, users were easy to convert. It was IT pros that were challenged to convert. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. There was a real...
my cheese, right?
Yeah. No, there was a real challenge to work out what Teams was going to do for the organization and why the organization needed Teams. Users actually took to it quite quickly, although only for chat and meetings. But we can move them on into the rest once we've got them in the app. But users do struggle with the pace of change. initially, especially when you move them into the cloud to start with. Once you've got them in the cloud and they're getting these tiny little changes, it's much easier for them to cope with.
Okay. And the way in which you educate users, in which you train users over, like thinking back over the past 5 years, has that changed, or have users changed, like in how they receive that information and how that happens?
I actually think the pandemic has made a real difference to my job. It's made it easier. Users have had to become a little bit more self-sufficient. They learn better because they're used to looking at the screen and finding things themselves rather than having to be spoon-fed everything. And I'm really noticing a kind of increase in general digital literacy just because they haven't been able to turn to the IT person or their expert neighbour and get the problem solved for them that day.
Yeah.
So that's been really good. And it's therefore much easier to get them to take the next couple of steps.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like, it's interesting that so many people didn't understand, like outwardly would say, I can't do video, I don't do video, I don't understand how it works, I can't use a phone, like I can't make it work. Turns out if you want to see your grandkids every 2 weeks, you make it work, right? Like suddenly that's what it takes, right?
And when there's no one to do it for you, you can work it out in about 5 minutes if you actually stop and read the screen.
Yep. I'm going to ask another awkward question in a minute, but before I do, question from here. We've got a thing to throw at you to say thank you for asking a question. So, yep, go for it.
Yeah. It's on now.
Is this working?
Yes.
Do you think Teams tries to do too much in any areas?
Ooh.
So I'll give you an example. Office documents. You get a document, you receive it, you get the link to it, you open it, and it can open in Teams, it can open in the browser, it can open in the desktop app. And that's where we sometimes have trouble with users. And I think, is Teams trying to do too much?
It's user choice. Yeah.
That's a nice answer.
No, that particular example, I always say to users, it's your choice. Personally, I prefer using the Outlook web app, but the Word desktop app. And that's my choice as a user. But I do take what you're saying. Does anyone else have a...
Yeah,
I have an opinion, of course. Yeah, surprising, right?
If you swear, you have to drink.
Yeah, no, I'm not swearing.
Okay.
No, I do think that this whole mantra of everything has to be in Teams and Teams is the new Windows, that's not the best direction. You have to be smart on what you put in Teams. The whole idea of limiting context switching, but have you tried to do a chat and a Teams tab at the same time? You're constantly switching or you're creating new screens. So you have to be smart about what you put in Teams and what you don't put in Teams. Your example is user choice. And I like the fact that there's user choice there. I do desktop, but that's just because of history, I think.
Yeah.
It's because he's an IT person. He doesn't like change.
I don't like change.
Thank you. Go for it.
I've got one more question as well, if I may. For you, Louise, the Power Platform and Power Apps, Power Automate, a colleague of mine made an excellent app the other day, and I said that he did it in half an hour, really great. I said, how did you do it? Was it Power Apps, Power Automate? Which he said, a bit of everything. And I just thought, is the Power Platform confusing to get started with?
To me, yes. It was totally confusing, and for the very first year, I only did Power Automate flows because I'm super lazy. I like to automate everything just because I'm lazy as fuck. Can I say this?
Drink.
Oh my! Oh no! I need, okay, someone needs to get me a drink. Yeah, I need to now. So because I was really lazy and I like to automate stuff, and I did not really believe that I could build an app, and then I just did. And then I did another one and the next one. But it is incredible dedication and loving to fail and loving to learn as well. You have an opinion, okay?
I think I disagree there. I don't think it's confusing to start with because it's easy to start with. It's just not easy to build something in the right way in Power Platform. You can build stuff. It's easy. It's there. You open the studio, you drag and drop stuff on there, and you have an app.
There's like a cliff, right? Like
The thing is, if you do that, are you familiar with garbage in, garbage out?
Well, that's the thing.
Yeah. So if you just clicky clacky draggy droppy, then the result will be not very valuable for a business scenario, and it won't be secure, it won't be compliant. So we have just like a lot of issues there. It's just like when you write crappy code, it's the very same thing. And just because now we reduce complexity and just like put a nice UI layer on top of that does not mean that anything that would not apply to our code first developers would not apply to makers.
That's a whole other session.
Yeah. I'm going to move this on because we've got one more question in the back.
Well, it was just going back to what you said. Sorry, I don't know your name. Tim, what Tim said about how you open up documents. My husband said to me a couple of weeks ago, "I hate Teams," and I went, "What?" I said, "Like, why?" And he said, "Because SharePoint. I open up documents in Teams and I can't use them properly." Because of exactly what Tim said, that there's too much choice and he started, he's switching companies all the time, he's a contractor, so, he's coming and going, you get no training, if you're coming in that quickly. And no one ever told him that you go, do open in full application, not in the web browser.
You can change defaults now.
Yeah, but he doesn't know to do that. And so, because he's not in the technical community, he works in construction. He's a project manager in construction. So it's just like, in a way, there's too much choice. And how many others out there are thinking Teams is shit because it's opening up documents in the wrong format, that she's making it really difficult for them to get the work done. So I just said to him, you just need to go like, open that and that. He went, "Oh, I wish someone had told me that before." I said, "Well, I am just 3 floors up from you working in the loft."
Yeah.
And, I do train people to use Teams. So I thoroughly agree with what Tim said there. And it's lack of user knowledge.
Question is, do we have sensible defaults at this point?
No.
And do we have, does everything have to be in Teams? That's...
Yeah.
So
Cool.
what might be sensible to you is maybe not sensible to her. And of course, there are so many features. It's impossible for regular end users to keep up with that. And we can't just train them every single day, and they need to just do that on their own and have that mental model of being curious about that. And if they are already just if they have an opinion,
Yep.
I love SharePoint and I do not like Teams, maybe, then of course that will give a notion.
Yep, definitely. Right, I'm going to move this on whilst Luise gets a drink and everyone else gets a cupcake. Please, we do not want to take them home. I want to talk to Laurie. So, Laurie, lots of people here might know you, people in the MVP community, we all know you. But for everyone here who doesn't know you, can you briefly introduce yourself?
Hi, everyone. I'm Laurie Pottmeyer. I'm the community lead for Microsoft Teams. I sit within the engineering team at Teams. I'm located in Portland, Oregon. So I'm 3 hours away from a lot of our team, though we are very global at this point. And I've been in this role for 5 years. Weird. Do the math.
Yeah, right? Yeah, so...
Just over 5 years. And so I started before Teams went GA. And before that, I was with Skype for Business. And before that, I was with Link.
Yep.
So I've always been in the UC space with Microsoft. I've been there for 17 years.
And that's interesting because you've been on this journey since the very beginning. You really, probably before any of us realized Teams was a thing, you were in meetings for we're going to build this thing and it's going on Teams. And this is what it's going to do.
Skype Spaces.
Right. Oh, yeah, Skype Spaces. And from the outside, seeing that happen and launch and then go through the pandemic, it really feels like, for the most part, Teams has risen to the occasion. If you compare it objectively against its peers, it's done well. What was it like on the inside? Was it like the swan and the legs underneath that just going crazy and people are just throwing servers at the Teams and what was it like?
But what word do we say if we, to make it straight?
If you swear, you have to drink.
It was a complete
coughing. I'm like, let's fight. No.
No, it was, God, I mean, how was it for everybody else? Like, right? I mean, we're in there trying to build this thing that was literally saving lives. Like, when you talk about, I just, I'm this community person for Teams. Like, I don't save lives. Like, guess what? Like, we all, like all of you in this room, if you were working with or on Teams, you were probably saving somebody's life at that point. When you look at all the healthcare workers, the emergency services, just so many people using it in schools. I mean, gosh. And so we went through this trying to balance quality with making sure everybody had access with trying to innovate. Okay.
Yeah, you can't do all three, right? Like,
right. So do it all, just do it all. And then, it just, our roadmap changed significantly, as you can imagine, because there were things that were really important to people, and then they weren't important to anybody. And all of a sudden, everybody needed to see 800 people on a screen.
Yeah. That meeting room feature, who cares now, right?
Which was something that was always on the roadmap, but it was kind of hovering, and there were things that were more important. And then all of a sudden the pandemic happened, and it was like, great, Teams is crazy. You can only see 4 people, and so then we were like, okay, gosh, we have to increase that. But it was a definite balancing act, and we were moving very, very quickly to basically hold down the fort and make sure that we were giving everybody access. And probably some of we had to turn down some features, we had to take some quality hits. And that was because we needed to make sure that we gave access to everybody and how to work through that.
Yep, definitely. And the thing about the Teams team now and that experience, and if you don't interact with other bits of Microsoft, you might not realize this, but it's a very two-way process. There's a very open communication between customers and engineering and like the core product groups, and that's kind of not normal, particularly in Microsoft, and it's definitely not normal in the industry. I'm like, bits of Microsoft are good, don't get me wrong, it's not like, but bits are not so good as well. Like, was that a deliberate choice?
Yeah, absolutely. So Teams is very customer driven, and I love to hear you all, the team up here, say that when we were talking about this, because it's something that it's my job to be customer driven and to listen and to talk with community and be out there. But not everybody knows that is different. And we have OKRs. Many of you have OKRs. We have ones that are around being customer driven. It is our engineers' responsibility to talk to customers or to listen to customers. So it's certainly something that from the top down is very, very important to us. And we have so many various listening channels, partners, customers, the field, our own programs that we run, MVPs, regional directors, and then of course our different forums that we run with the MTC, the Microsoft Tech Community, and certainly what used to be User Voice and now is the feedback platform that we built in-house. Yeah, so definitely a priority.
Yes, and does that feed into like just thinking about like how you decide what gets built? And you kind of said that pivoted a little bit during the pandemic. Like, how does that process happen? And I guess like for people who have something, they put it in, like they want their feature built. Like, why is that feature not being built and this one does? And like, how does that all stuff play?
Yeah,
and like, because you're part of that, because you've got to tell people like, actually, we're not doing this thing, we're doing this other thing. And then,
or it changes. Yeah. So the roadmap can change. It does change. We try to be forthcoming, and sometimes we can't be because we didn't know. There's a lot of variables. There's a lot of dependencies. So we may plan on doing something, and we're full bore ahead, putting people towards that feature or that piece of the product, and then it doesn't happen. Well, why? Something else took its place. We are, increasing the team by the boatloads, a significant increase in the team. I don't even know what we're up to. So, but we can't do it all. There is give and take. And so what we do, we have AI built into our different listing channels. And so we look for triggers, and that's really spikes and things. So that's really what happened during the pandemic when we had to change course. Is we saw, oh, all of a sudden these things are just spiking. It's like, okay, whoa. So we have regular meetings where we're looking at all of these. We have a whole team that's looking at our different various channels, and we have to make choices. But sometimes it's not that we don't want to do it, or even that more people want it than not. Sometimes there's a dependency or a quality issue. We have to pull things back that are really close to release, that maybe now it doesn't work, or it doesn't work the way we want it to because of something else.
Yep. And sort of the way that all kind of comes to us, like I think Microsoft have really kind of transformed over not just the last 5 years, but 10 years maybe, to be like a cloud company, to be a company that ships evergreen software rather than those kind of like CDs that used to come in boxes. And there aren't really those big versions anymore, but you're still trying to get that kind of feedback out from people, and you're trying to understand when stuff lands, whether it's received well or not. How do you go around doing that? Because we've seen various innovations of things coming out that like people might have heard, like things like the public preview programs and like the ring system and stuff like that. How does all that stuff like tie together?
The rings. Yeah. There's
and guys on the panel, if you have thoughts, we'll let Laurie answer first, and then you can.
Do you have an opinion?
I have opinions, but go ahead.
Okay. We're all friends here. No, I want to be as transparent as possible about the process. And, it used to be much easier when you could ship a box and there was a CD, and it was much easier when something was on-prem and we could plan on quarterly, yearly, whatever releases. And now it's like, let's be honest, I am in the role that I'm in and I can't keep up. So kudos to any of you who can keep up, because it is a true challenge. It's something we need to improve. I'll just be totally blunt. We know this, we know, and it's moving so fast. And because there are so many changes, we can make updates to the roadmap. And we actually just are in the process right now of changing the process to get things on the roadmap, to make sure that there are checks in place that they have to do such and such before it gets released. So I think you'll start seeing improvements. Here's the deal. We've got rings. So starts at ring 0. Ring 0 is basically what our engineers are using. So this is kind of the phases. The rings are the phases that the product goes through from the time that we develop a feature until the time it gets released into the public, or GA, general availability. Lots of acronyms at Microsoft. Ring 0 is what our engineers who are building the product are using. Ring 1 is what the rest of the team is using in engineering. Then it goes from there, and there's dot whatever. It's not just 5 rings or 4 rings. But 1.5 is where we do validation and testing. And most, I think, but maybe not. Okay. So the MVPs and customers who are participating in TAP, their IT pros are in 1.5. So they're just over where the team, they're even before Microsoft. So Microsoft as a whole is ring 2. So what happens, it goes from engineering, we do quality checks, we do testing. Sometimes the features will just go straight into ring 2 or ring 3 or whatever. Sometimes they skip. That is one of the processes that needs to change. And then, if we meet the quality bar, and sometimes that doesn't mean it has to be perfect. It means it has to meet a certain bar because we need it to move on so that we can start testing the next thing. Goes to, then we move to the ring 3 or ring 2 is the rest of Microsoft. Ring 3 is the users who are participating in TAP, amongst others. 3.6 is public preview. So all of you are eligible to participate in public preview, and I totally hope that you are, and that you will urge your IT departments to let you do that, or if you are the IT department, to let us do that. It's a really good way to test prior to GA. And then 4 is GA. So that's when it goes out the door. And some things go into a ring and then get pulled back because of quality. And some things go away completely. So you're testing something what the heck happened to that? You guys remember the reply to message? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Got pulled twice, I think.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
That was fun.
And everybody has opinions, Yeah, when people like Yannick have opinions, And then, of course, it's so great that Microsoft then listens and says, okay, oh, wait, oh, we didn't see that. So we should have probably have seen that, but we didn't. And then just like pull that back so that you can get this fixed.
Yeah, I can attest to that. Like really 1.5 is it's a playground and it's not always a fun place to be in. Like we've got 5 people in our company in there. Well, you never know what you get in the morning. Like stuff shows up, no announcement, then gets pulled away, then shows up again with an announcement, but it's different. Okay, whatever, we're going with it. But when we give feedback, they'll listen. Like if it's broken, they'll listen. If we don't like it, they'll listen. They not always are able to change it, but at least we get feedback on why it's not moving in that direction. It helps. So I like that. And that's what Laurie says, move closer, like to a lower ring. You can get to 3.6. It's a good thing. You get time to prepare, to see what's coming, to be there. I love being in 1.5. My users love being in ring 3, just because it gives them a feature a month or 2 months or 3 months before it goes ring 4. We have a chance to test it before it goes public. That's very interesting.
Mm-hmm.
And from a point of view of training your users and getting them ready, if you are using the public preview, it just makes it so much easier. You're ready for when your users start using it, and you can teach them, showcase, update them when something's going to change. So I always encourage organizations to have champions, whether you call them that, or super users, or whatever you call them, people who get those updates earlier and they share it out to the company, because they're also going to feed back to us in IT and on into Microsoft as to whether it's working in the business and what we need to change. So if we don't do that, we're going to get products that don't do what we want. So if you want Teams to do what you want it to, you've got to use it and feedback.
Yep, 100%. 100%. Right, let's talk about my favorite subject. Let's talk about development. Yannick? Let's go. So, like, development's it's a big part of the Microsoft story, right? And it's a big part of the Teams story to have Teams at the center of your world. And, you know, like the applications, the data is accessible by users in Teams. But that only works, right, if developers can bring their stuff into Teams and like they can make that available to users in Teams. How do you score Microsoft on that? And has that answer changed over the last 5 years?
Ooh.
And just remember who you're sitting next to.
Yeah, I know. So I will move first before I give my... No, so let's start with 5 years ago. They announced that we could build our own tabs in Teams and integrate bots there. And that was like, you can do that. And that's about it. There was nothing. There was no tooling. Documentation was... Well, was there documentation? I don't think so. So that was we had to figure it out. We had people in the community like Victor Whelan generating Yo Teams so that we could scaffold our projects. He figured it out, so we didn't have to do it again. But like that's where I feel like if you create a development platform, make sure you have tooling. Microsoft failed there, in my opinion. It was very hard for us to go there, while they were advocating to make Teams the center of the world, like you say. But it was impossible for us to get it there. Now, things have changed a lot. We had Yo Teams over the last 5 years. It was a stable tooling. It's community driven. We could use it and it got improvements, it got better, got all new functionality. And now Microsoft is releasing the Teams Toolkit. And that's also a special story, but now it's V4, it's G8, it's okay. It's not doing everything yet. It's okay. It's not doing everything yet. Like I do the session tomorrow about building a tab in Teams with only adaptive cards. Well, that's a new functionality they released at Build 2021. They announced it. It's in no tooling. So if you want to do this, you have to figure it out, and it has only one documentation page. So that's what I'm not getting. If you're building this, you put engineering effort in a new feature, you release it, you showcase it on Build. Why is it not in your tooling? But, well, the thing is SharePoint any better in that regard? Are the other products better in that regard? It seems like APIs get released and I want to use it on day one. For Microsoft, it's like in a week or so, it's okay. In like a month or so, it's okay. In a year or so, it's okay. The API is there. So I feel like there could be a little bit more in terms of tooling. Guidance, authentication. Don't get me started on authentication. It's an amazing identity platform, but how hard is it to integrate this in your application? ADAL, MSAL, who knows what you have to use at this point? How do you do single sign-on in a bot and in a Teams tab? Like, it's different. Can't you figure it out and like build one way of doing it? So that's the thing that I feel like there's a bit of consolidation in the way of building for teams could be a good thing, especially if they really want us to bring our stuff in there. So,
is there anything you want to see Microsoft do that like make happen that they're not doing? You know, like functionality you want to see them make possible. We haven't got long, but like, yeah.
Can we make a list? No, there are like things. What I'd like is there are some default buttons in the Teams client, and I really like to replace functionality in there. Like keep the button, like create a team. I want to replace that button. It can stay there. People know that this button is there, but it has to be my thing. I want it to go to Provision Genie or my own provisioning engine or maybe a SharePoint list, whatever. But the out-of-the-box creation of a Teams team, it's better now with templating and all of that and steps. But organizations want to do their own custom thing with it. So let me extend that UI. Let me put a button next to it. Let me do all of that. Those things that I would like that, and my users would like that.
Yep. Anyone else got like a thing like that? Don't worry if you don't. Just...
I feel like, questions. Very good.
Thank you.
I had a question, but you all already like far away from that. But I have a question which is similar. I have a question which is similar to this one. If you have over those 5 years something which even get to the GA, and you just believe, okay, this was completely wrong, or even if Laurie can share something which was even put away after some time because you find out, oh, so this really went wrong. Or is it so good, child? Which
I wouldn't say it. Technically, it worked, but I don't think it hit the mark of what it was trying to do, and that's together mode. For me, together mode is. I really like the idea, but it was more a gimmick in use than a practical piece. So that would be the one I would pick.
And I feel mine is breakout rooms. It was super important at some point in the pandemic to have breakout rooms because Zoom had them. And
we don't have.
Yeah, sorry. And we needed that in Teams because of education, and they needed breakout rooms. But the first versions of it, like it took ages. I can attest to that. Like Ring 1.5 was no fun with breakout rooms. It was too early for us to test it, and then it made it to GA, and it was lacking features that you want. Like breakout rooms, you got 10 people in a room. You say you've got 3 breakout rooms. They would put them randomly in a room. Like, who wants that? Like, I want to put my students in a specific room. That was not an option. You couldn't move people from one room to the other. You couldn't. All of that are like things that would have made the feature useful. Now it was a random. Yeah. Now it was a random. Like, and how does that work? So
We use that. We have a mandatory training this week, Monday. And we used random breakout rooms on purpose because they wanted us with different people to do the like lab part every time. But I know that we need options, right? Like it needs to be an option. Yeah, absolutely. And that was done on purpose. The whole breakout rooms going, evolving it, rolling out in phases. But yeah, it's frustrating. Yep. There's a lot of stuff like that. But.
My wife is a school teacher. She's like, there are 2 people that will never, ever, ever are allowed to be in one breakout room together in like a small group. Yeah. What does the system do? Yeah. So what does the system do every time she uses breakout rooms? Those 2 people are together in the same breakout room, of course. So.
Yeah, it's hard, isn't it? Right, I'm keeping on the time, but we've probably got like one more. But the Teams app model, right? I'm interested to see where you think this is going, right? Because we're seeing it kind of bleed out into Outlook. We're seeing it bleed out into Office, which is really cool. Don't get me wrong. Like, as a developer who's built something for Teams, my users can now access it in Outlook, and I don't really have to do any work. Where do you see that? Where's the natural end of that? Like, does it bleed out into Windows? Does it, like...
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Why not? The problem is now, why should I do this? Why should I build this? The step that's not totally cleared out is like monetization. If I do the investment of putting my app over like everywhere, I want to make money out of it in a way. And I also want to make sure that I can make money out of it in Teams, potentially charge a little bit more for having it in Windows as well, like all of that. Now it's all or nothing. You have to put in a manifest, but then it shows up everywhere. But yeah, why not? The only thing that what I'd like them to figure out is like, you've got 3 tracks already. You've got the Teams JavaScript SDK that's now doing Outlook, Office and Teams, but you also got SharePoint Framework, which is also doing SharePoint. And then you've got on Power Platform side, the whole thing with the PCF components, which is also different. It's all UI, client-side development. Like, put them together, like instead of 3 things, make one that works everywhere.
I disagree. Achievement unlocked.
Going long.
So to your question, why not? Because context matters. So if I have an app that serves a specific team, why would I then have this in Outlook? That doesn't make any sense. If I have something that is just for me, and it should be in the context of my email or for my calendar or whatsoever what I have in Outlook, why would I then have this in Teams? Yeah, but options confuse users, and this creates chaos.
Right.
Give it back. Give it back,
right?
because options confuse users, but users don't make this choice. It's developers that make the choice of where to expose their application, and that's what I like.
Yeah, it's very quick one. So I think here's the thing, right? You're catering for the masses, right? Because it's not always about Teams, because especially the fact that you got various platforms available right now, the SharePoint traditionalists or Windows. So I agree in a way, bring it all in one place, make it simpler, seamless, develop it. But we know, right, the technology always changes. Who knows, 2 years, 3 years will look different, right? But then you still got a SharePoint framework, all these things. So it's a choice thing, I think, for me, that you give as much choices as possible to a variety of developers.
Yeah. That sounds like, oh, sorry, go for it.
I was just going to say, we can't really disagree with that. And as much as it pains me to say it, we have to accept that some companies don't like Teams. They still use email.
Yes. That is it. That probably is quite a good place to wrap up, because I want us to hit our target timings, because you all want lunch. This has been fascinating and fun. We could carry on talking, as you could tell, for hours and hours and hours and put everything to rights.
And we're running around here. You can find us for more opinions.
Please do. Yes. And happy birthday, Teams. Woo! And thank you.
Grab a shot and cake and balloons.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah,
I'm afraid to throw the balloons because of the drinks.
Yes, please take the balloons, eat the cake. Massive thank you to the panel. Thank you to Microsoft. Thank you to you guys. We've got a giveaway. We've got swag.
We've got
you've
swag.
made it this far. We need to.
There are boxes you can take on your way out. There's stuff in there.
Yeah, so everybody gets one of those, and one person gets one of those.
Drink.
All right, so swagit.io, and the number you need is